An ashram is a very special genre of community. We're not here primarily to raise food, or raise buildings, or raise children, or raise money. We're here to raise consciousness. And if we do all those other things without raising consciousness, well, we have failed. All of those other goals are fine for a permaculture community, but they are completely irrelevant to the purpose of an ashram. And that purpose can only be fulfilled if every one of us shares that purpose. And raising consciousness means self-realization. It's not simply untangling the knots of one's neurosis or other kinds of karmic suffering. And it's not creating grand theories of causality behind one's symptoms of suffering. It's to discover the very nature and source of being. To one on the path of self-realization, there are no longer any outer horizons. In fact, the very concept of horizon is dead, even in science, which can see to the ends of the universe. There are no horizons for the Hubble telescope. The only horizonte that remains is the inner one, the horizon that is the very source of being and seeing, of knowing and of loving. But to go on the journey of self-realization, which is an inward journey, not an outward journey, completely inward, one must go completely alone. There are no companions on the road to self-realization. And it is only that willingness to enter into the realm of absolute aloneness that enables the journey even to be possible. And so long as there is unresolved abandonment, depression, and fear of loneliness, and wanting someone to hold your hand through the inevitable troubles of life, self-realization will not be possible. Because the mind will externalize at key moments and seek help from sources that it believes to be external to itself. Now, ultimately, nothing is external to the self. But it is through the denial of that, it is through the fantasy of externalization that one loses the perspective that enables one to reach the truth of being. Because as long as consciousness holds on to the illusion that it is a body in a world of matter, an external world divided into inner and outer dimensions, imperience and experience, then there can be no contact with the other who lives in their own dream narcissistic bubble of signifiers and images and desires and fears. It is only when that entrance into the inward has brought the external itself into the dimension of inwardness that the split between inner and outer, subject and object, self and other, can be healed. But for this split to be healed and for non-duality to be regained, the barrier, the membrane that illusorily lies between the inner and outer must be dissolved. And that membrane is the ego. With the dissolving of that illusion that separates inner from outer and separates heart from mind and separates truth from the real and separates desire from love and being from non-being and God from the self and matter from consciousness. When all of those false distinctions have fallen away because the distinction maker, the ego, has fallen away, then the nature of the real becomes very clear because it is no longer obscured by the I thought that divides everything into fragments so that nothing can be known as it really is. It divides the real into fragments in its own illusory mind and then hates the world for being fragmented into such illusory and essenceless components. But self-realization can only be attained through the silencing of the chattering monkey mind of the ego and entering into the depth of silence, from which no ego can ever return. Until this journey has been made to the very end of the road, to the very source point from which the truth of the real of being emerges. The ego illusion will continue to arise and to create denial and fantasy and suffering. And the monkey mind will secrete one opinion after another, one delusional, aggressive act toward another, one antagonistic scenario after another, in order to divert from its own helplessness in achieving self-transcendence. And all of the lower chakra energies are simply used as such a defense, whether it's the desire for an external other and for the illusion of love, for rescue, for security, for domination. All of it is simply a mechanism to avoid taking the journey to discover who you are and what you are. And at some point when one comes clean about all of this and recognizes the cowardice that is keeping them from entering into deep meditation, not some failure to believe in God or some illusion that there is nothing to seek and therefore one might as well remain in the ego consciousness. But one must face the fact that one was not equal to the challenge of facing the mystery of the inner horizon of consciousness, out of which the ego emerges. And to enter into the depth from which no illusion can remain. To live life without illusion, without diversion, without anesthesia, without the cheap thrills and the mental chattering that prevents clarity, requires utmost courage. And the willingness to give up one's carefully crafted style of maintaining the illusion of an ego and all the false bravado of the facade that one has created in order to deal with other people. But that is helpless in dealing with the self. And only when all of the stylistic accoutrements of the ego are let go of, and when consciousness stands naked in its own emptiness, its own absolute negativity, its own total lack of being, that the essence that had been occluded because of one's facing the wrong way in life results in a conversion, a turning inward to the dimension of the real and away from appearance. So that the meaning and the purpose and the mission of an ashram can finally be attained. And through that, a pathway of healing will have been created that others may easily follow and with far less struggle attain the same result of peace and true empowerment and liberation from the suffering of all illusion and all entrapment in time and space. May we fulfill the purpose that led us to create this ashram and make it a reality not just as an external set of buildings and people raising food and bringing children and problems and conflicts together, but an energy field in which the Supreme Self is fully revealed in all the majesty and the power and the luminosity and the love. That is the outcome of the inwardization achieved as the goal of all existence, which is the realization of the One Self that we are.